Ian, welcome to the Ground Pass podcast. Introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? How did you get into tennis? All the above.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Full name, Ian Mondul. Been playing tennis my whole life, but I feel like really the last 5 years is where it's become a lifestyle for me. So a lot of people might know me as my alias, 40 Love. I kind of keep to myself. I don't really put myself out there. Pictures, videos, the podcasts are new for me, getting my face out there. But yeah, that was never intended to be this like outward facing forum for people to talk about tennis. It was, I started an Instagram account where really I moved to California. I'm from the East Coast originally, from Buffalo, New York, and lived in Philly, where tennis was just seasonal. And I, grew up playing most of my life, but it wasn't a lifestyle until I moved to California 4 or 5 years ago. So we moved out here and, sunny, the weather's nice. I'm starting to play tennis, almost every single day. And the first thing that I noticed was like, I don't have outfits for this. Like I've never, I don't have anything to wear that I like. And I'm playing tennis so often and the weather's nice. And all I had was, whatever I had with me coming from the East Coast. And so I started looking, I'm like, well, how can I don't have a lot of money. I'm like, how could I build a apparel and build a closet of stuff that I would feel comfortable wearing off the court too. I need shorts that are multifunctional. I need shirts that I could wear to play tennis and then also wear, hanging out in LA. And I'm looking for it. I'm like, where is it? Where's the good stuff? Where's all the cool tennis gear? And so I started just kind of going through the archives of old tennis images and putting it on 40 Love. And it really just started as that for me. It was just like a mood board of like, man, why isn't tennis this cool anymore? Why isn't it, yeah, well, it's getting better. We'll talk about that. It's getting better. But yeah, 5 years ago, I just started posting a mood board for myself really. And it kind of just transformed into something I never would have expected it. There's people who follow me because they're history nuts and they like seeing the old pictures and guessing who's in the images. And I started to learn more about tennis history. Other people are really into the apparel side of it, like me, and they're looking at this as inspiration for their outfits and everything, which I love. I want my account to be interpretive, however you want it to be. Maybe you're a tennis racket nut and people are like, this is a Dunlop Max Plot. I'm like, okay, I don't know any of that stuff, but good for you,
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just transformed. And now I've been organizing tennis events locally. I live in Ojai, California now, where we've got a local tennis tournament that's the oldest in the U.S., oldest other than the U.S. Open, actually, 1896. I run all of their merchandise. I run their social media too. And it was just kind of a natural progression for me going from the 40 Love stuff that I was doing to helping locally. And yeah, now I actually work in tennis professionally. I haven't really disclosed where I'm working because I just started and I just want to keep those things separate, but I'm doing social media and marketing for a big tennis company right now too. And yeah, it's consumed my life now. If tennis wasn't, every day for me before, like it certainly is now. Awesome. And it's great. It's how I've been able to connect to people like you. We got to meet at Indian Wells and everything. And I just love the community around tennis. So
yeah, same. I love that story. It would, I love things like that where you kind of make your hobby your job. I had this podcast during the pandemic called Non-Traditional, and you would have been a perfect subject because it's all about people who had non-traditional careers doing what they love. So that's a side note. But no, how I found you was through 40 Love. It just popped up on my feed one day because, of course, I'm following all things tennis. And I just loved it. I was like, oh, just seeing those outfits again, seeing the people from that, like tennis was so different then. I just loved it. Just like I used it as a mood board. Like I just loved the images and loved seeing it. So that's how I followed you. And then I got to meet you in person at Indian Wells. And I think that's also the joy of this community. It's like when I finally started going out to tournaments outside of the East Coast area, it's meeting all these cool people and everyone's been so nice. So it's great having you on the pod. We're recording June 8th after the women's Roland Garros final. So we know what the results are. And let's start there. Let's talk about it because Iga Swiatek has done it again.
Yeah,
She crushed in that. Did you watch the final?
I did. Yeah. I saw that it was on, I'm on West Coast time, so it was on a little bit earlier for me, and she was up, and I was like, I think this is going to be a short match. So I went back to bed. I woke up and I rewatched everything, got to skip through some of the, the commercial breaks or whatever and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think most people expected this going into the tournament. That match against Naomi Osaka in the second round seemed to be the match of the entire women's bracket. Once she got through that, it's like, okay, who's going to stop her? And
Yeah.
yeah, it was good. It was, I mean, she's lights out. I mean, 3 in a row, 4-time champion now, 5 Grand Slams, and she's only 23 years old. It's pretty crazy.
No, it's really really impressive. And I remember watching that Naomi match, and I posted something about it, just saying, this is it was watching her fight through that match. I was like, this is the world number one right there. Like, she kind of showed that, but then I also said, her getting through that match, she's winning. You might as well just hand her the trophy now. Because if
Yeah.
she could show that amount of grit and that amount of just in her whole demeanor, the way she was playing, there was no way she was going to lose. Like, it was just, she was going to fight to the death. I think people talk about dying on court. She was going to die on court in that Naomi match if she didn't win. So it was really, really impressive to see her get through the Naomi match. It was nice to see Naomi at that level again. I cannot
Yeah.
wait to see her back at a tournament, because that was really nice to see on that end. But after she got through that, I just thought there's no stopping her now.
Yeah. Few bagels, few breadsticks along the way. I think most people didn't really give Paolini a chance. And I like Paolini. This is the most that I've got to watch her. She's had a great clay court season.
Yeah.
Um, the match today was an hour and 8 minutes long. Uh, it was good for 17 minutes. It was, yeah, she got the early, Paolini got the early break. It's 2-1. I'm like, okay, hey, we got something here.
Yeah.
And then Iga won
False
10
hope.
games in a row.
That's what we had.
Yeah.
We had false hope.
Yeah. And she didn't play bad. I don't know if you looked at this. I'm big into like statistics in the matches. I think a lot of the times you can peel back the layers and tell the story a little bit better with the numbers. And like, unforced errors for both of them, a little bit higher for Paolini, but not a lot. I mean, the match didn't last that long, so there wasn't a ton of opportunity to have unforced errors. But just 2-1 winners in Iga's favor. Paolini didn't look bad. It was just clear she's the better player. I think maybe a Rybakina or Sabalenka would have given Iga a bigger fight. It was a matchup nightmare for Paolini. Paolini's scrappy. She moves around the court really well. But the players that have given Iga the most trouble are the ones that are able to push her around and kind of enforce some power. And that's not Paolini's game. And she's small. She's like, she would go up to the net and then Iga would kind of pop it over her head. And she has to be really apprehensive about how close to the net she goes because her range isn't that much. And it was a matchup nightmare for her. And I just think this entire match, that if you're watching it, you're just like, yeah, this is just a better player. And that's okay. Like, Paolini had an amazing tournament and she's had a great clay court, clay season. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
She definitely has had a great, not only clay court season, but season. She's coming off of, which is crazy that it's all happening this year, because she made it to the second week of the Australian Open. It was the first time she'd ever made it to the second week of a Grand Slam. She won the 1,000 level event in Dubai. So she's been having some really great results. She's going to be in the top 10 come Monday. And it's great to see, because I was saying earlier, she reminds me of kind of a Leylah Fernandez, a smaller player who's like really expressive and positive attitude on court. She's 5'4", and the fact that she's at this level pushing Elena Rybakina, who's 6 foot tall and can hit the ball over her, I think it's really, really impressive. And I think she has a great future to come. I hope she makes it to the end of year finals, because it would be nice to see someone like her make it that far this season.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have to admit, this is the most that I've watched her. She's 28 years old, so she's been on the tour for a while. I mean, she's been kind of pushed around and bullied up until this point, and this is the most I've got to watch her. And I just like to see different varieties of tennis. I don't want everybody to look the same. So, yeah, having somebody out there that's, scrappy and like she's not shy in any of the interviews, but she's kind of goofy and like doesn't
Yeah.
really know what to say. And like, I love that. I'm like, it's great. Yeah, I want to see different personalities and different styles of tennis. I don't want everybody to be the same. So it's nice to see her there. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's still in it. She's in the doubles final as well. That's how
I
great this
know.
tournament
Yeah.
has been for her.
The
So
Italians are doing great. There's Italians in the men's final. Sinner obviously, got eliminated, but he was there to the semifinals. Yeah, it's great.
yeah, the Italian tennis is having a very good year considering this is also an Olympic year. They're not going to be looking very far for talent to take the Olympics. So that will be
Yeah.
another exciting tournament that's going to be happening in the same location as Roland Garros. So
Yeah.
exciting times.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was a quick final, not much to say about it. Iga did it again, really dominant. Just a little point on her too, because I think she's a very sort of divisive number one, but I do think she is. My stance on her really did change after that Naomi match. She showed
Mm.
a lot of just grit. She's not the most expressive player. She's not out here doing sort of Instagram dances or, anything like that. She's very quiet and reserved, but her dominance should be respected. And just, it takes a lot to beat her. And I'm really interested to see going forward how the tour responds, because you see Elena Rybakina, Arina Sabalenka really try and push her, really trying to, you know, improve their game in order to beat her. And then now you add Naomi Osaka into the picture. I think the WTA they're having a really exciting moment where consistency is high and you have people really going for the number one.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, I was really on the Iga train early when she was winning because you had, in the women's game especially, you have a lot of success from teenage players. And you don't see that as much on the men's side.
Yeah.
And I felt for a while was a little under the radar, and people were talking about the phenoms of, Coco Gauff, and now you've got Andreeva. And I was always like, hey, she's right there. Like, she's their age too, and she is insane. She's so good, and she got the world number one via Ash Barty's retirement. And I think there was some slander around that too. And like, did she deserve to be the world number one? She goes on that 37 match win streak, which was insane. But yeah, I've always been like, hey, we could be witnessing one of the greatest women's players of all time. She's off to a very, very early start. I think she's already top 10 in the women's game for weeks at number one. I think she's up to like number 9.
Yeah.
She's up there. And what I'm I think this win and what she's doing this year, what makes this more impressive to me. I saw a tweet about this, so I'm not. This isn't organic thoughts of my own. I just really agreed with this point. Is like, what she's doing right now is almost more impressive than that 37 match win streak, because everybody else's game has risen. And there are the players like Danielle Collins and Rybakina and Sabalenka who have kind of shown the recipe, and Osaka in this tournament. They've shown the formula that it takes to push her, and she's figuring that out in real time, how to beat the players that are beating her.
Yeah.
And that's a world number one. Like, that is a world number one. She's finding new ways to win. She was down and out in that match versus Osaka, but then every point that Osaka didn't capitalize on to close that match, you're like, Naomi, you don't want this to go too much longer, because like, that comeback is in there with Iga. And this win is almost more impressive because of how the women's game looks right now. She's still figuring out a way to win. And what I'm most interested in seeing from her is, can that success now permeate to the other surfaces? She's
Yeah.
only ever made it to the quarterfinal in Wimbledon, so grass is probably her weakness. She's won the US Open, but she's never won the Australian Open. Obviously, most of her success at a Grand Slam level has come on the clay court. So I'm just curious to see, can she find another layer to her game that will add to the success on the other surfaces? Because we know that she is the queen of clay right now. So
Yeah. Future's looking good for Iga. I think grass is probably going to be what she tries to tackle next. And looking forward to see what she does there. So why I had you on, why I've wanted to talk to you on a podcast for the longest time is tennis fashion. You talked a little bit about 40 Love in the beginning. And I think I've thought for a while, actually. I think actually, you know, ever since Francis made it to the semifinals of the US Open, then seeing the reaction the very next year. I remember going to the US Open last year and it was packed. People are into tennis. And so I've always thought, okay, so tennis is on the upswing. I've been following tennis since, the Williams sisters first came on the scene. So I've seen it in its sort of ebb and flow. I've seen the sort of the popularity rise and then fall and all of that, but it's definitely having a moment. And I think with that comes tennis fashion. I think we're seeing that a lot just in mainstream brands, just, popping up with a tennis skirt everywhere. But I'm waiting for that excitement fashion wise to be on court. So I thought it would be perfect to have you on to not only talk tennis fashion, but to start with the looks that were at the French Open this year, because it was bleak. I'm not going to lie.
yeah,
it was a bit
yeah.
bleak, except for one brand, maybe two, but definitely one brand crushed. And maybe we'll save that for last. But let's start there. I'm going to try and do something where I'll have all these photos. I'll create some sort of link and put it in our show notes so you can look at it. Maybe if I edit this podcast, I'll put the photos somewhere on the screen if I do that. But starting first with, I think, the big brands, the brands that I think everyone knows who they are and probably expect them to be the at the forefront of the tennis fashion, and that's Nike and Adidas. And Nike has kind of been in the, they were the reps for some really big stars, Serena Williams, Maria Sharapova. And let me tell you, I remember, when they, Serena was making her rise, Maria Sharapova came on the scene, all those incredible custom looks that they did for them still just live rent-free in my mind. And cut to today, and you just have, I feel like, I don't even know what to call that. It just seems so cookie cutter generic. It's always the same shape in a different color. What have you thought of, first of all, let's start with Nike, because considering they also are the sponsorship, the apparel sponsors of the two biggest, newest names in male tennis right now, in Sinner and Carlos. How is it that they're just making these t-shirt and shorts? What are they doing?
Yeah, it's bad. I thought the shoes for Nike this year were pretty good, but what's funny about that is none of the players wear them. Most of them are wearing old Vapor 9.5s and 9s and stuff because those were better tennis shoes. Maybe aesthetically, maybe not, but those are still some of the more popular shoes that players are wearing, and their actual outfits they're bad. They're exactly what you said, which is they keep the exact same silhouettes, and they go Australian to the French. They change the colors, and they go to Wimbledon, and then they go to white, and then they change it for the US Open. I don't even like the colors that they're picking. None of it looks good. There's no custom gear for Carlos. I'm like, come on, he's one of the most exciting players, since the big three have joined the tour. And this is both on the women's and on the men's side. They seem to be obsessed with weird, obscure patterns that I'm I'm not into.
The
I kind of like simplicity.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know what they are,
but
yeah.
I don't know. I've in the 5 years that I've been talking about tennis apparel, I've gotten a lot of people who've messaged me who have had some inside scoop on what's going on in Nike and various brands, and Adidas is in this too. It just seems like they're so big and they're in so many other sports. Tennis is not a priority for them. That's what I've heard. That's how it looks. If it shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody that they're putting in minimal effort, because that's what it looks like. And yeah, I mean, as far as this tournament, this was bad. This was a bad tournament for Fitz. I feel like we have been seeing a little bit of traction of like, okay, this looks good. This French Open came around. Like, this is all terrible.
We went backwards.
Not a fan of. Yeah, I was like, what are we doing, folks?
I think
colors.
I don't know if there's some sort of like color scheme. I don't know if there's like a book and they're like, okay, everybody pick yellow. We're all gonna choose yellow because all the Adidas athletes came out looking like bumblebees, and I didn't know if they were trying to jump on the bee trend from Indian Wells, but it was just
that's right. Yeah, I don't know. Yellow seemed to be a color this year. A lot of orange. Everybody's kind of playing off of the Roland Garros colors. And listen, the colors, everybody's going to feel different about that. I like the color orange. You can make a good orange outfit. It was not that. It was not good. The black and yellow, I don't know if I've ever seen a good black and yellow tennis outfit. Probably not. No. Just weird choices. And like, it does just seem like, they've got like a swatch book that they're going through. They're like, what color haven't we done yet? Or what combination haven't we picked? And it's like, come on, let's try harder than that. I appreciate when brands have an aesthetic that they're trying to, they're picking colors that go well together or are interchangeable with other items. I think of, we'll get into this, but like, I think of Wilson. They have a very specific color palette that works, and you can buy almost any two items, wear them together, and they look good. Nike's stuff and Adidas's stuff, not the case. And it, I don't know, saw some weird combinations, but I didn't like any of it. So
yeah. Before we jump onto the middle tier, so this is definitely the bottom of the barrel, Adidas and Nike. We have to give a special shout out to Naomi Osaka, because she is still the one Nike, tennis player who gets custom kits. And so far they've been good. So it's like, they can do it. It's just, I think right now, I guess Naomi was signed a while ago before this new crop of kids came in. So it is possible. Her kits so far have been great. It's just a shame that she's the only one right now that's doing it.
Yeah, the Naomi Osaka Nike gear is great. And they have all this like off-court stuff that looks great. And you know who else wore great off-court Nike gear was Yannick Sinner in some of these photo shoots he's been doing for like GQ. And I posted a picture, everybody's probably seen it, but he's wearing this kind of nice like camel colored zip up jacket and shorts. And I'm like, why aren't they showing up to the court? And I posted about this. I'm like, why is this not what they're showing up to the courts in? I want more outfit reveal stuff. I want more of that off-court gear, and all the cool stuff seems to be getting worn during like practice sessions and everything. Yeah. I'm like, why is that reserved for when nobody sees anything? And then they wear the cookie cutter crap for the actual matches. Yeah, not a great year, or not a great tournament for fashion from the two big brands at all. And yeah, Naomi's stuff is some of the only stuff that actually looks good. And again, even if it's not your cup of tea, it looks good on her. Like I like her outfit this year, and I like what she's worn from Nike generally. So
yeah, remember the days when Roger would show up at Wimbledon and everyone would wait to see what he was coming out in, like the walkout part. I mean, again, we've fallen far, Nike. You can do better.
Yeah. I remember when I first started going to tournaments, it was when I lived on the East Coast, and Federer came out in this like super slick Nike zip up jacket. It was black and purple for like the night sessions or something. And I was like, oh, that's such a good gift for like my dad for Father's Day or something like that. And I, at the time I didn't know, but I went to buy it, just like sold out everywhere. It's like, okay.
You're like, oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the bottom. Now for the mid tier. And for the mid tier, I've chosen two brands that I think are actually trying, one in Yonex and the other one in On. Now, On is new on the scene with tennis apparel, I think. They signed Iga Swiatek and Ben Shelton last year, which I thought was genius. I
Hmm.
mean, genius signings by them. And they've added Italian player Caboli this year. Did they add? Oh, and then they added Joao Fonseca
Fonseca.
as
Yeah.
well, Brazilian player. So they're definitely on the scene. And then you have Yonex, which is a more traditional tennis brand. They have Casper Ruud, Elena Rybakina. I particularly liked the Yonex kit. I made a joke on Twitter that I thought the Kuroda boys like made the kit because they're when Rude was wearing like the orange and then the green tops, I was like, oh, he looks like a carrot, but in a good way. It was I thought the right tone of green and orange to go together.
Yeah, I love the Onyx gear. I'm glad you brought it up. To me, that was one of the few bright spots of this tournament. I had some messages from people that weren't digging the orange. Again, that's not going to be for everybody. They're playing off the Roland Garros colors. I thought everything looked good. And sometimes you have to look at the stuff that the brands are making and you say, okay, so this orange isn't for me. Fine. But just looking at the item that you're, like the shirt that Rude was wearing or Elena was wearing, and just say like, if this were in a blue or a color that I would wear, is this a good look? And yes, they
Yeah.
had nice trim on the neck, on the sleeves. Those little details are what separate some of the better items from stuff like Nike and Adidas, for instance. Having those little subtle details really add to it. And I thought it all looked good. Hercash is another one that's sponsored by Yonex, Carolyn Garcia. They all looked good in it. I thought it was great. The cream color stuff, especially, that's more like my aesthetic. As I
Yeah.
wear my cream colored hoodie. When Elena had the custom dress in the cream, I was like, wow, that's awesome. And it looked
Yeah.
good with that green with a little bit of orange touches on it. I thought the Yonex stuff looked really good. And from what I've heard, so Yonex has not really invested a lot in their apparel in the past. You can't really find old Yonex gear. It really doesn't exist. There's not much. Apparently, they have a whole new team of people that are really invested in the apparel side. They did an event, I think, at like LA Tennis Club, maybe just last month, kind of previewing all of this gear. I've heard from a couple people that Yonex is in. Well, whoever's there now is trying to really invest in the apparel side of things, which seems like a smart move. And I think this was a great first splash for them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this was some really good stuff. And moving on to On was one where when I saw just the photos, like, you can find these sort of like release photos of this is what's coming or whatever. I was like, ooh, I don't know. I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. Um, because they've also kind of, and I guess that is because they're super new to representing tennis players and stuff. They had kind of had the exact same kit for a while. Um,
Yeah.
but this, I saw the photos and I was like, I don't know, but I have never been so completely 180 turned around
Hmm.
than when I saw it on a player. And I don't know
Okay.
what it was, but I remember thinking, okay, On's not going to be my favorite. I'm not even going to think about it. And then I saw it on Ben Shelton and he
Yes.
wears it so well. He wore it so
Yeah.
well, I have to say.
I I'm so glad that you said that because I didn't love it. They've had a very slow rollout of their apparel. They were all wearing the same stuff. They had the black with the hot pink and they had the white with the hot pink, and that's all that they had. And it was for like a full year. The gear itself, I've never tried it. It seems to really absorb a lot of sweat. I mean,
Sweat.
this is getting away from the aesthetics of it and more like how does it play on court. It doesn't seem like it's great quality, so I'm a little suspect. Like it might not be great gear, but yeah, they introduced the new look for Roland Garros, and I was lukewarm on it. But I agree with you. For whatever reason, Ben Shelton looked great in it. I don't know. I don't know if it's his like complexion or he's younger body, kind of hip, Gen Z esque guy. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I agree with you. I think he looked. He killed it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, I just was so down on the outfit until I saw it on him. And I was like, oh, I need to give this a second shot. And even with Iga too, like it
Hmm.
looked good on them on in person. Just in the photos I initially saw, I was definitely not into it. And I do think it has to do with the complexion, the way he wears it. It
Hmm.
just looks cool on him. Like purple's his color. I don't know if he knows that, but purple's his color. You should just
Yeah,
keep to that.
it looked good, and I think something that brands really need to start to consider is when they're picking their colors, how does it look on the courts that they're playing on? And those colors, it had a little bit of the orange, like the clay. It had that kind of indigo, bluish purple, and I think it looked really good on TV. So I think when brands are like picking what their outfits are going to look like for the different tournaments, I think they should really consider the venue and the setting. And I think it looked great. So yeah.
Yeah. And On is just a company I'm really excited by right now. I don't know if you saw the commercial. They just signed or are now collaborating with Zendaya, who is the
Hmm.
star of Challengers. And the commercial itself was just so good. And just to see them go in that direction, it's very interesting. I'm kind of like interested to see where they're going as a company.
I think, yes, I think that if we had the same podcast in maybe 5 years, we might look at On as one of the big hitters. And the reason I say that is you have Roger Federer behind the scenes at On. You have, I think the Roger Pro shoes look awesome.
So
And
good.
I don't know how much he's really like in the weeds with the design. He's still signed by Uniqlo, so you don't even get to see Roger wearing any of the gear of the company that he's invested in. As soon as Roger's contract is done at Uniqlo, which is 2028, we're going to start seeing some Roger gear. There's no way that they're not going to get the RF logo on stuff, and like, watch out. Like, On is going to be
Yeah.
somebody to watch in apparel. So yeah.
Yeah. Exciting. Exciting. Okay. So next two, which I think were, for me, the top, interested to see. I think one of them we completely agree on. The other one, let's see. And the other one I will say is Lacoste. They are slowly becoming one of my favorite brands. I
Mm-hmm.
never, ever liked Lacoste. I was like, if Novak Djokovic wears another red kit, I am going to lose it. I am going to lose it. I mean, and I understand that's a lot, I'm sure, is coming from the player as well. But he wears red all, it's the same kit, just in a different shade of red. Um, but in general, looking at what Medvedev wore, and I don't know, maybe you know, but I don't think they represent, or at least none that I know, any female players, because the photos that I have of the dress are excellent. They're so good.
Yes. They had I couldn't give you a list, but I know Jacqueline Christian. She wore the
Okay.
maroon Lacoste dress. She was eliminated in the first round, and that was one of the better outfits of the tournament. But yeah, sadly she was out in the first round, so nobody got to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I think a lot of people, Medvedev, he was wearing his kit with those tights because the first week of the tournament was very cold. So I'm sure a lot of people saw that. And, we're going to talk about shorts in a few.
Let's do it.
But I did still like his kit, even with the sort of like, medieval, tights under it.
Yeah, that was a vibe. That the colder nights of what he was wearing, pulling the socks over, it was yeah, it was interesting. He's got an awkward body type. I feel like it's hard for them to find stuff that's going to look really good on him. It's funny that you are like kind of more like on to what they're doing lately. I'm going the other direction. I think that I used to like the Lacoste gear a little bit more. And in the last couple years, I feel like the collars are all kind of weird and they're doing things that I don't love. The women's
They
side,
do,
I
it's
think they're
it's almost
still,
like a faux collar. Like it's
yeah,
not a collar, it's like into the shirt. I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
yeah, weird, kind of like, I don't know, like it looks more like they should be wearing this for like rugby or cricket or something. Like I don't know, and like the stripes too. Just maybe that's what it's like giving for me. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm a little off Lacoste right now, but I will say like I've bought some Lacoste gear in the past, and all their stuff usually like feels incredibly quality. Even like you just buy a pair of sweatpants or just like a polo, like it all feels a lot better. So Lacoste quality is still there, but I think I'm kind of going in the other direction with what they're bringing. There's other brands that are bringing more to the table now. And like, to me, Lacoste was always a little safe, but that was okay because they're, luxury. They've been around for a while. It's classy. They have, really simple colors, things that just kind of always look good, always kind of like leaning into the green. I thought all of that was great. And I've always liked the Lacoste gear, but I'm kind of going in the other direction lately. I don't know, like I don't like those colors. I think the women's stuff looks good. I think the maroon dress that Christiane was wearing looked really great. So I think women's stuff, good. But unfortunately, like you said, not a lot of representation on the women's tour with the Lacoste gear. So
Yeah. Yeah. Now to the number one. I've been waiting to talk about them this whole conversation. But
it's a no-brainer. We know where we're going.
Wilson is crushing it, man. Wilson is crushing. They're on another level. Marta Kostyuk cannot wear that dress, but I mean, that dress on her is insane. Insane. Yeah. And they're doing it on the men's side too. Like Jari has like, he looked great in the Wilson gear, and the colors that they had for Roland, again, that green, they just picked the right shade of green. But what do you think of the Wilson gear and what they're doing right now? Because it's crazy. Where did they come from? It feels like there was no Wilson, and then it was like, oh my God.
Well, that was intentional. I mean, I'm friends with some people on the Wilson team, and I never want to sit here and have anybody believe that like I'm only promoting brands that have been supportive of me. That's not the case at all. I want people to wear cool stuff. I want people to find their community. I want people to find what they like. And for me, when Wilson came out, I didn't know anybody at Wilson. They did a collaboration with Kith that was now 3 years ago. And that was intentional. They had never really dipped into the apparel space in a meaningful way. They wanted to make a big splash. They had a collaboration with Kith, and they dropped a pretty limited release. And it was, at the time, the coolest tennis gear I have seen in a very long time. I think everything post like the early 90s is bad. Like I don't really post anything beyond like 95, 96, because I think everything since then has been terrible. This was one of the best drops I've seen since, the old apparel days. And when I talked to the people at Wilson, I was like, oh man, you guys crushed it with that. I didn't get anything. It sold out so fast. Like also I don't have the money to buy Kith stuff, but I was like, it was so good. And they were like, that was the point, was to make a big splash initially with the brand out of nowhere. Nobody saw that coming. They've been pulling different people from various apparel brands. And that's kind of been, the people behind the scenes of really revamping Wilson. And yeah, I mean, it looks great head to toe. They don't miss. It all looks good. It's all interchangeable. I've got some friends over at the Wilson team, but like, I'm happy to support it regardless of that. My entire closet is almost Wilson gear at this point, because it just looks so good together. It's the right combination of, functional and looks good. I would wear it anywhere. I don't need to just be wearing it at the tennis courts. So.
Right. It's like picking back up on what you were saying in the beginning when you first moved to California. It's like finding gear that, especially if you're not a professional athlete and you kind of want to still dip into the style, finding stuff that, yes, you can wear on court. It is functional, but looks hella fly, like just out and about in the streets. And that's what I actually see Wilson a lot in. I do not see Nike t-shirts, running around. Right. I see Wilson gear a lot now. And and people are just wearing it, with like jeans, or, they kind of dress it up however they want. They can like separate the pieces. You can wear the pants. Like, again, it sort of came out of nowhere, and they picked almost the perfect athletes for it as well. When they signed Peyton Stearns, I mean, genius, because I don't know if you remember, but the whole running joke, I think the last US Open was, how is this awesome player not repped by anything? I think someone mentioned on her social media, like, oh, you're wearing two different, I think she was wearing like two different things. And she mentioned, well, yeah, I'm not repped or anything. Cut to, she's signed by Wilson. I'm like, come on, genius.
Yeah.
Genius. So I think they're hitting all the right strides, and I'm so excited to see what they keep bringing out because it's so good, and I think they're really, really crushing it right now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I do have some inside information, so it's not like I want to spill too much of the tea, but like they are invested in women's tennis, and I think that's great because male representation in tennis is kind of it dominates the space on Instagram for me. It dominates a lot of the
Same.
brands that I've talked to and I've interviewed with in the past. It's a really male dominated space, and Wilson seems really committed to growing the apparel side, especially in the women's game. And I think that's great. There needs to be better outfits for women uh, across the board. And yeah, the Wilson, I mean, Kostyuk's dress is like, I see people posting about it. Like, there's the one photographer, Radka. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
late Merritt's. She's been posting about it. She's been calling it the perfect tennis dress. And I'm like, yeah, it was. And it's head to toe. Their rackets match their apparel, their shoes. You can put together a kit. Nothing drives me more crazy than when somebody's wearing like a really nice outfit or whatever, and then they're wearing like neon shoes. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, tie the knot. Let's get like, those are the little details. Wear the socks that match. The Wilson logo color matches the dress too. And I'm like, that's the detail. That's the stuff that makes an entire outfit head to toe really kill it. And yeah, Wilson's invested in women's tennis, and it's great to see because women's tennis, especially, like, there needed to be brands that were bringing good apparel to the women's side. So it's great.
Yeah, I love to hear that because I think that's such a great, kind of lane to pick. And you're right. Right now it's so male dominated. So it's nice to see that a brand
Mm-hmm.
is saying, you know what? We're invested in women's tennis. So
Yeah.
that's Wilson. Okay, before we talk shorts, I'm gonna do a quick hit of three other brands that I think deserve a mention. And I would be really interested to see what you think. We have first New Balance, who I like, their stuff is like, especially on the men's side. I'm like, okay, but they do some really great custom kits for Naomi, for Coco
Coco.
Gauff, like that sort of yellow kind of crop top skirt thing she wore at the U.S. Open, not U.S. Open. She wore that at Australian Open. Even what she wore, that maroon color that she wore at the US Open last year was also good. So, I think they do great stuff for Coco.
Yeah, the New Balance is getting better. It's been a little lackluster in the past. I like the stuff that Coco is wearing. I like that they're giving her some autonomy with the shoes too. She's kind of got this streetwear looking, almost high top, like basketball looking New Balance. And I've heard amazing things. Obviously, I haven't tried them myself, but I've heard amazing things about them. There's been some questionable color palettes for those for me, but I think her outfits have been good. And you even just recently saw, I mean, WNBA right now is kind of blasting off, and there was the name escapes me, but there was one of the players wearing the New Balance white crop top and skirt, and she said I was inspired by Coco. So you got tennis core that's like permeating and going into the WNBA and pop culture, and I think New Balance is doing good work there, and obviously Coco Gauff has mass appeal. She's an amazing person, an amazing player, so love to see it.
Yeah, yeah. And then we have Uniqlo, who I think popped back into the scene only because Kai Nishikori was playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he wore two
What are you
different
going to say?
looks. Huh?
Yeah. I can't wait to hear what you're going to say about this because
Well,
I actually not knowing what we were going to be going over, like, I didn't know if you were going to have like specific things you wanted me to comment on. I have my like best and worst, and like I won't tell you which one he's in just yet. But what are your thoughts on kind of Shakuri's outfits?
they're Kai Nishikori outfits. That's what they are. It's one of like I never, even when Roger started wearing Uniqlo, I remember when, Novak was with Uniqlo briefly. I've never really warmed to their kits at all, but there's something about Kai Nishikori's Uniqlo outfits that are just like, they're him. And I can't hate it. I can't not like it. It's just I don't expect him to wear anything else. The ombre I didn't love, but what what did you think?
Well, so yeah, he had one kit that was a little less offensive. That was maybe like a black and red
Yeah.
ombre kind of tie dye. The one that he wore that was like a neon green and blue, I hated it. I watched his first match. I think it was, he had that one on. It was like during the day session. And
Yeah.
it was the first one on my list of like, this is hideous. I don't like Uniqlo stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like it. So
Yeah. It's funny when you were saying when Roger's done with his Uniqlo contract, he said 28. I was like, oh, that's so far away.
I know.
That's so far away. I thought it was sooner. But and then the last one, which I think it's the one that I'm a little the most disappointed in, granted from where they came from, is Boss. Now, I remember when Boss first came on the scene and signed Matteo Berrettini, and I thought, oh my goodness, an actual fashion brand is now sponsoring a tennis player, where 99.999% of the stuff they do is fashion. What are they going to do with tennis, their tennis kits? And, Matteo showed up with some stuff that was meh. And now they've signed Taylor Fritz, who I actually talked to Taylor Fritz about it at Indian Wells. He was a very interesting answer. I just asked him like what it was like switching apparels. Like, did he like it? And he was like, yeah, because the Nike stuff never really fit me. So I'm so excited to like move on and be with Boss. And then I saw his Boss outfit and I thought, oh, okay, it's black. It's black and it says Boss on it. Great.
Yeah. I thought they entered the scene with some impressive stuff, and then they did a collaboration with Asics on some shoes, but they kind of fell victim to the same thing that happened with On, which is like they haven't changed, they haven't progressed at all. They did finally sign their first I just was looking it up while we were chatting here. They did sign 2 female athletes, and I remember they wore it for like maybe Australian Open or something. And it was like it was like black and white. It looked like a nun outfit. Like it was just like so bad. Really lacking on the women's outfits, and haven't changed much on the men's side. And you have Taylor wearing it and it seems to be fit him too big. And I don't know, Berrettini fills it out a little bit more. I think it's hard for Berrettini to look bad. He's a good looking guy, but I'm looking for more. I'm like, come on, this is high fashion Hugo Boss. Like let's do some stuff. Like let's make more outfits. Why are we kind of sticking with the same thing? Black, white, and tan.
Yeah. I just saw, I think Berrettini posted a video of him practicing because he's going to be participating in the Boss Open, which is one of the grass tournaments. And it only showed him from behind, and he was wearing like a sleeveless shirt. And in the back, the lower back just had Boss in the biggest letters that you could possibly imagine. And then it had the sort of like tan stripes that they have like down the middle. And I thought, no, please let this be some sort of practice kit. Because if he shows up on court it was the biggest Boss logo you could ever have put on a shirt. And interesting choice.
They're gonna have to do more for me. They've kind of fallen off. They entered the scene. It was one of the years that I think the first year that happened was kind of a big year for tennis apparel. There was a lot of different brands that entered tennis. It was last year or 2 years ago. And then, it's just like, here we are 2 years later and it all still looks the same for them. So they're going to need to do more for me. Not a little disappointed with Boss.
Yeah. This has been a great conversation. Like kind of far exceeded what I thought.
I could talk tennis fashion all day, as you can imagine.
But I think one of the things that really endeared me to you specifically, and I was like, fine. I was like, someone else gets it. But what is the correct inseam for shorts, please?
Oh man, now we're talking my language. Listen, you can wear whatever you feel comfortable with. And for the guys out there that are like, oh, I can't hike it up higher than 7 inches, or, maybe the body type, whatever, totally get it. Fine. Wear what you're comfortable with. You cannot show me a picture of the exact same outfit on two pro tennis player athletes where the 9-inch, 11-inch dad golf shorts look good compared to the 7-inch, 5-inch. You cannot show me. And some people will say, oh, but what about when Federer was wearing Nike? No. If he was wearing 5-inch shorts, it would look better. Just objectively, the proportions of an athlete's body look better in the shorter shorts. That's just, I don't even think it's up for debate. So I love the Ben Sheltons and, the people who are our guy, Thomas Mahatch, like hike him up, man. Tommy Paul follows my account, messaged him a couple times. Just a few likes here and there from him, whatever. He was telling New Balance, he just talked about this with Tim Newcomb, and he did an article with Forbes. He had been telling New Balance for a couple of years, I want shorter shorts. And they finally gave it to him back at in Indian Wells or something. He was wearing 5-inch shorts. Me, 5 inches or higher. That looks better. Some people like Nico Jari, they're super, super tall guys and they don't need to go that short. So they're wearing the 7-inch shorts and it still looks like short shorts. Right. That's the inseam length for me. 5 inches or higher. If you want to get real crazy, you want to be Holger Rune and you want to pull them up and make them look like a Speedo, power to you, man. If you got the legs, do it. Like, it looks good.
Yeah. No, I have to agree with you men's sort of tennis fashion for me hit the peak with Andre Agassi. I know it's not for everyone, but he had a vision and a style and he wore the short shorts and I just loved that look on him. And then you had Pete Sampras who came on. I was like, why is he wearing basketball length? Like, why are his shorts so big? Why are they so long? But then that's kind of what
death. That was the death of tennis fashion.
Love him. Love me some Pete Sampras, but damn, those shorts were too long. And that's kind of where things went. And it wasn't until Holger Rune and I was like, oh my goodness, he's wearing the correct length of short. Like, that's crazy. And I stumbled onto, I think you have a hashtag, shorts watch or something like that. And I stumbled onto it and I was like, there are people out there who believe in the truth. Who see the light.
I don't know how that started. I've kind of become like synonymous with this like campaign and I've always said since day one of my account that if there's a hill I'm willing to die on, it's that the men's shorts need to get shorter. And somewhere in the last year of me just endlessly talking about it and making everybody sick talking about it, it might've been another account that like tagged us and showed a picture of like Holger Rune wearing short shorts and said shorts watch. And since then, it's something that Tony and I talk about on our podcast, Tennis Today. And now it's synonymous with my account, this, conversation around how short should the shorts be, or what's the correct length of the shorts. And I'm here for it. Anybody that wants to have that conversation, I think it's great. And I'm happy to see that they're getting shorter.
Yeah. Again, I think men, I think there was a time probably where with men's fashion or at least with tennis players, it's just like, yeah, it's a shirt and shorts and, let's just put it on and play some tennis and stuff. But I appreciate the tennis players who are actually thinking about it and how they look on court and how they feel. I mean, with Thomas Mahatch, who's someone that I talked to about for him, it's not only it looked good, he said he moves better with it being that short. So it's not just for the look, it's a functional piece as well. So to all our short kings out there, we heart you. You keep on keeping on.
Yeah, keep hiking them up.
Man, oh man, Ian, this was so good. I love talking tennis fashion with you. I hope we can do it again sometime. And Nike and Adidas, if you're listening, please do something, anything, just
help
anything
us.
At all.
Help us. Yes.
Help us help you.
Yes, please. I'm available anytime to talk tennis fashion, Nike, Adidas, yourself. Love to do it. This has been a blast.
Awesome. Bye.
All right. See ya.